Shakti Namaha.
Shakti, Shakti Namaha. Shakti, Shakti Namaha.
Oh, Shanti Shakti Namaha. Shanti Shakti Namaha.
Shakti, Shakti Namaha. Shakti, Shakti Namaha.
Shanti Shakti Namaha. open conversation. That is to say, I don't have anything to say tonight. So, if you all want to pick something to talk about, or if not, we can just close with a song. But,
I was going to do my report.
oh, that's right, I totally forgot. Thank you. That's why I don't have anything to say.
I do.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
We had talked about that earlier, but I
Yeah.
totally forgot. Thank you.
Safety. Alrighty. So. I'm not gonna do all this, but my notes. I have been learning about the early church, and this is some stuff from the first century after Jesus, pretty much. Let me just get these in order. So, a lot of fascinating things. What really came to my realization was I never had any idea what the early church was. Just some vague sense, oh yeah, there was an early church, but this cleared that up a lot. So I want to just read this summary and then highlight a few other points to it. So the thing that struck me first and most was the early church was not Christians. They were Jewish people that believed the Messiah prophecy had been fulfilled, and they were looking to continue on as the same Jewish people in Jerusalem. It was a little different out with the Gentiles, but you know, that really struck me. It hadn't occurred to me before that they, but so anyway, after Jesus' resurrection, the original disciples or apostles continued traveling and teaching his message through Turkey and Greece and Rome, are places we know a lot about, and hints that they went other places too. And we would assume that other teachers that had developed along with Jesus when he was there were also out teaching. So that was the formation or beginning point of the early church. Then there were some strong leaders known as the Apostolic Fathers who joined with the original apostles and continued with the apostles' work to establish a church that would continue. These were the early ones that recognized if we don't set up a curriculum in a format, like everywhere these guys go, it's a little different because everybody adds their own or changes whatever they want, and they were recognizing that was a battle right from the beginning. Paul even addresses that in some of his writings, that, you know, stick to the Jesus story, guys. Don't mess it up. So these apostolic fathers were very strong leaders that wanted to begin forming the church itself, so it would be a continuing channel of Jesus' message. In Palestine, the early church faced its problems. It was persecuted by traditional Judaism. In Rome, the Christians were also persecuted. And the Gentiles, in what we now know as Greece and Turkey, accepted Christianity, but they really wanted to change it to fit their culture and their beliefs. So there was a battle there against the message of Jesus in its pure form. And in both the Gentile and the Jewish regions, there was another group called the Gnostics, who were constantly trying to change or add to the teachings of Jesus. The Gnostics were a general category. There were so many of them, they were very splintered themselves. but they each claimed they had some insight directly from God, or that Jesus had talked to somebody with all this esoteric knowledge that nobody else knew, but they knew it, and were forever trying to alter the original teachings that we know in the Gospels from Jesus' message. So the early church was being formed to hold on to the Jesus teachings. You know, I had never gotten that sense before, but it had that purpose right from the beginning. How do we keep these teachings pure and alive? So towards that end, very quickly, before the end of that first century, they established bishops, which merely means in Greek supervisor, to oversee a district, and presbyters, who were like the ministers of a given church or maybe a small local region, and the bishops were to make sure the presbyters stuck to the script and didn't wander off into all these other distractions. So, and then there were also deacons, which were the people that served the church, taking care of like financial matters, the ones that served the poor, tend to do housekeeping, whatever was needed in the physical functioning if they had a church in an established place. So again, the idea was to create this sacred idea that the Gospels were the teachings of Jesus, not anything else, and not everything else, like some wanted it, and to find a way to create a structure that would keep carrying those Gospels forward. So that was my quick overview of it. I will go back and add a few more bits to it. So there really were only 5 known apostolic fathers that were considered strong leaders in forming the church. I mean, I would have pictured like maybe hundreds or something, but there's just no records. So, and they were all in the Gentile realm. What happened in Jerusalem was, right away, because the early Christians, which the Jewish tradition called the Nazarenes, they thought they were answering the Judea call of the Messiah, and they kept going back into the synagogues and temples to teach their new message, and the traditional folk didn't like it, not at all. In fact, the story of Saul in the Bible is a good example. They sent Saul out to actually start exterminating Christians. And that's when he had his experience and became Paul. So things were rough in Jerusalem. Then around year 70 CE, the Romans come in and did a massive political cleaning in the town, and it caused a whole lot of the early, well, of Jews in general, but the Christians also, to spread out to the whole Mediterranean region and leave there. What's that word? Diaspora or diaspora? Diaspora, it's called. So, and in addition to the Pharisees and Sadducees that were attacking the early Christianity, there was another group called the Essenes, which were a little bit more of an esoteric group. They were also interacting with the early Christians and trying to sway their views into it. So it was like a battle on all fronts to keep those teachings pure. And then in CE 135, there was no more Christian church at all in Jerusalem. The Romans cleaned out, I think they took out the temple and everything and made the city into their city. And so that branch of early Christianity just kind of faded as having a center. And so it moved into the Gentile regions, which this book said specific or primarily were Turkey, Greece, and Rome. But the Jews that spread out from the Jerusalem really didn't disappear. They set up new places all around the Mediterranean. And so they had centers, and a lot of people had been attracted to the Jewish culture because they were good people to have as friends. They, in general, practiced the hospitality and getting along with your neighbor and stuff. And so Gentiles would form communities around those Jewish communities because they liked the flavor of their living. And then the growing Christian movement could come in and tap those Gentiles because they were already interested in the Judaic flavor. And it's kind of interesting, this whole like swirling hodgepodge of energies that were going on as the church was forming. So, in the Gentile world, there were these 5 primary or known apostolic fathers that took up the lead to actually form a church. And this was pretty early, like starting around the year 60 or so. They were beginning to do this work. And a lot of them, they're known as apostolic fathers because they all knew the actual disciples. They had contact with Jesus' disciples directly. And so they were given an authority as leaders and teachers that nobody else could claim. So they'd never met Jesus, but they knew John, they knew Paul, and Philip was up in there sometime, I guess. And so they were the like the next step, because there was Jesus, then his apostles to carry on his message, and now these were carrying on the message of the apostle, forming another generation of the church developing. And it's not too much in detail, except most of them ended up being martyred. They were quite bold about their teaching and promotion of the church, so that was not real fun stuff to read. But then, as the church began to grow, and it was growing fast, it's been said or thought that one of the reasons it grew so fast was they actually provided a sane way of living in a very chaotic world. I mean, rule under the Roman Empire could be very punishing and barbaric, and there were in many areas really no law. Places just did whatever they wanted, and life was completely unpredictable and often very painful. And this model of the love of Christ and the way of living in community was very attractive to people. Like, finally, here's something that makes our life feel better. So that is one thought on why it was able to spread so quickly. It was practically effective. But their biggest battle was there were dozens of primary cults and sects in the areas in Rome and Greece and Turkey of all sorts, and they were imported from Syria and Egypt and just about everywhere. And the Romans, which ruled that whole area, said, we don't care what religion anybody believes, as long as you put a picture of Caesar or the emperor in your church or on your altar, we're good. And so they promoted anything goes as long as it had good moral conduct. They required a good, what they considered a good morality for their culture. Well, the Christians ran into some trouble there because they were saying, no, all these other gods aren't real. Ours is the only real God. And look, we've got this guy that proved it. And that was felt as a big threat to the general Roman culture. Like, they're going to try to change up the way we do life here. And it was just a generalized feeling of threat to them. In Greece, they weren't threatened by Christianity, but all their different religions constantly wanted to change it. Sure, come on in. Come worship in our altar. Come worship in our place. And a lot of the citizens were like dual citizens. They were, Christians on Sunday and whatever on Monday. So these early apostolic fathers had to spend a lot of time keeping the church defined. And the same thing in Turkey. There just was so much competition. And then again, the Gnostics were everywhere saying, well, yeah, the Gospels are right, but here we know more. We got more secrets to tell you. Come join us, or let us lead your church. And I'm just trying to picture what that must have all been like, trying to, of course the apostles experienced it firsthand, and the apostolic fathers experienced still the miracles and the passion of the apostles' teaching. I mean, I like to imagine sometimes being there. I mean, Jesus has just been there and did these incredible things. And now his apostles are traveling and saying, look what he did, He fulfilled the prophecy because he could do these things. We saw him do it, and then he breathed on us and we could do it too. And they were still doing miracles at that point. Paul was doing miracles. So their passion, but how can we keep this energy alive, is what drove the formation of the early church. And I think that's a general summary of what I came across. There were just lots of details I plowed through to get that all together. Actually, the author of the book, it's very disorganized, and I spent more time organizing after I made notes than I did reading his part of it, and going off and searching tons of links that came up with it. It was very fascinating, and I hope it maybe gave you a little bit of a sense of the kind of crazy that was going on with this passion of, man, look what has been given to us. And then the dispersion and all the forces trying to water it down or dumb it down. And anyway, I found it very fun to do all. So thanks for listening.
Yeah.
And just as a quirky side note, doing these things now, my memory is getting so bad that by the time I read through one whole paragraph and go to make notes on that paragraph, I've already forgotten, and I have to read it like one sentence at a time and then starting a note, like it's getting pretty crazy. But it's still fun. Okay. Yeah. More to come. That was just
Yeah.
the beginning of the first century.
I really didn't know very much before the 300s.
Mm-hmm.
Some
Yeah.
a lot was new, or at least fleshed out. And
Yeah.
What'd I miss?
Every day.
I can't remember.
That was too long ago.
Were there any questions?
Nobody asked any.
I've asked Brother Tim to share with us a couple nights of the early beginnings of what I would call the Jesus movement. Partly because not too many people know much about it. And even what we think we know is kind of shrouded in mystery and kind of like your best guess kind of a thing, which is understandable given it was 2,000 years ago. But I think it's important, one of the reasons is that there was something very profound that happened and was happening in that early Jesus movement. And it was not what many people think, in this sense, that very often I hear people dismiss Christianity as a nothing other than doctrines and dogma and that kind of thing. That wasn't what was happening in the very beginning. What was happening was a kind of gobsmacked experience that people were working with, trying to navigate, trying to understand. It was all about their experience. Something happened that hadn't happened before. And in the first experience of the first followers of Jesus, that was his crucifixion and his resurrection. And that was a moment, as they say. And then they tried to talk about it. And they found out it didn't work very well. That is, talking about it. And then some people said, well, we have to talk about it in a certain way. And that didn't work so well, although it persisted for 2,000 years. But I think, for me, the most important thing is to recognize that something profound happened in that little part of the world, totally unexpected, and people were willing to give their lives for it. That's unusual. It wasn't doctrine and dogma. It was a dude that they fell in love with, and they were willing to sacrifice their lives for. That's different. So we do the best we can to try and figure out how that early Jesus movement moved, because it was, and that's the other part of it. It was always moving. It was always shifting, always changing. It was a mess. And I kind of like that. Had that early mess gone another direction, rather than becoming institutionalized, which it did, by the 4th century, it was pretty much closed book. Had it gone another direction, I think we would have had a whole different kind of Christian tradition. In other words, had the people back then said, you know what, it's okay that you think differently about this. It's okay that you believe this and you believe that, and I don't necessarily believe that. But this Jesus dude, that's what we're brought together by. And let's just be happy for that. They didn't do that, for the most part. There was always a stream underneath the institution that basically said, yeah, we're not going to worry about doctrine and dogma. We're just going to pray together, and we're going to care about the poor, and we're going to sing and pray, and this is going to be our life. We're going to eat together. And they did that. Sadly, very quickly, that kind of messy, wondrous life became more rigid. And to me, that's the tragedy of the story. But nonetheless, the good news is that throughout the history of the Christian movement, there's always been this, I would even call it underground group, this wondrously messy bunch that cared more about loving people than controlling people, that was more concerned with love than with certainty of belief. You know, that's important. So you never want to forget that. Anyway, any other thoughts or
It's a big
comments?
family. They're a very big family of different kinds of perspectives.
Yeah, yeah, very, very. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
diversity,
Yeah,
the spice of life stuff.
yeah. And I'm sure there were plenty of neurospicy people back then too. You know, and I'm not sure they were given fair voice, you know, listened to, respected.
Yeah, like Tim mentioned the Gnostics, and from what I remember, that was like a word used to like as an insult or whatever by whoever like tagged them with it. It's like know-it-all basically is what it means,
Yeah, yeah.
like in that sense or whatever.
And I'm sure there was some lovely, kind-hearted, compassionate, Jesus-loving Gnostics people. And that's the tragedy of it. You know, the labels start moving in, and the rejection notices were given. You know. Yeah. And even among the so-called Gnostics, there was diversity.
Oh
You know.
yeah, definitely.
You can't stop diversity. It's like trying to stop a garden from growing. There's always going to be stuff popping up in the garden. Any other thoughts?
There's a part in the Bible about that, letting the wheat and the weeds grow together.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That seems to make sense.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Any other thoughts? We'll close with a song. Thank you for your presentation. Sorry I had to miss part of it.
Morning.
Duty call.
Yeah.
There's a little song that we hardly ever sing in the songbook. So if you would open your songbook, I'll try and find it. Page 44. Page 44. This is from the year 2003. I think that's what it said. And the words are by Carol Marsh, good friend, and you know the guy who wrote the music. So. But this was the focus. Its focus was on Jesus, the first followers, the early Jesus movement. It's a good focus. So explaining today to someone who was interested in coming here that it's kind of simple. We try to follow the teachings of Jesus and follow the spirit of Jesus. Oh, sweet and close of this day, we give you thanks for the history of the earliest community. Help us hear your voice in the midst of the mess, in the midst of the simplicity, the diversity. Help us to follow your Spirit. May it be so.